Alright, let's see. We are surrounded by dogs. Let's do the theme.
1897. The future is in chaos and turmoil. Mankind is on the brink of extinction. Brave survivors band together and build a time displacement apparatus to receive a signal from a parallel future. This transmission is the Vundacast.
There's one team that keeps us. Heroes and love. We're the Vundacast. Never back down from our rest. Always start first. Never finish last. And next thing, that's too fast. Oh no, man. Our Vundacast. It's okay now. Just a podcast. We're the greatest. We're the Vundacast.
Welcome to the Vundacast, the official podcast of Vundablog.com, the home of whatever. The podcast that knows that the only thing scarier than what you don't see is what the people show you, because it's grotesque and horrifying. The truth. I am your host, Steven, and with me today is the glorious cohortress of the Vundacast, Danielle. How you doing, Danielle?
I'm good.
We are surrounded by Instagram's own Midnight Hounds, Duke, Xena, Rusty, and Morty, jingle jangling and fighting over bones to chew.
If you hear any weird noises, you'll know where it came from.
Or barking. It is currently 8:22 in Miami, and the Vundacast is broadcasting live for the first time on the YouTubes. Whoa.
Indeed. So that means we can't, fuck up. Right? Oops.
Does it mean we can't fuck up? I think maybe it means we can only fuck up. Basically.
I see. No editing, no
What's
slick edits for this team tonight.
I'm going to tweet out some linkage now for the people.
Ew.
Danielle. Oh, Xena. I know. They have an Instagram. It's called @MidnightHound. Xena, quiet. I'm going to plug your thing right now. Okay.
Xena, we're trying to do a thing.
In a second, I'm going to plug your thing.
We're doing a thing, Xena.
I put on your on-air sign outside, so we should be good, Xena. No one should bother us.
Xena, quiet.
See, Xena's the leader of the hounds
Xena,
because
quiet.
she's an alpha female. And the other three smaller dogs are all males. So they all follow her orders and leadership.
When she starts making noise, they all start
a strong leader.
Her and Duke. Duke's the second, the oldest.
The oldest. Do you want to tell the people what we've been up to today?
Oh, yeah, sure. So today, Stephen and I, we went to the March for Their Lives. It's March for Their Lives.
We are in Miami, so we went to Homestead.
Yeah. Well, let me explain. The March for Their Lives, we went for the protest to right now in Homestead, which is a part of Miami. Is a big sprawling city. You know, people kind of only tend to know downtown Miami and Miami Beach, but there are lots of different parts of what's considered kind of Miami, and one of those things is Homestead. It's its own city, but also sometimes part of Miami. It's complicated. Anyway, but there is an Air Force base down there. We're currently holding 1,000 of these children that have been taken from their parents. Some of them could also be unaccompanied minors. We don't know, though. The point is that they have opened up this facility, and some of the children there probably were forcibly taken from their parents. And so we went to do the rally today to show them support, and we brought them some stuffed animals. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to see any of the children. They're all inside. And it looks like a prison, guys. It's really scary. It's got fences and armed guards. It's not cute.
They don't let you
it's
close,
really
you know? It's right next to the Air Force base.
Yes, the Homestead Air Force base.
Everything around it just looks, really, militarized and...
And we went there to support the kids and hopefully give them stuffed animals. Hopefully they get them. I don't know. and it started pouring rain the second we stopped and kind of got to our destination. It started to pour rain, but it was worth it to go. The thing about it is that Stephen and I this is an issue that affects us personally because I'm an immigrant to this country. I was not an undocumented immigrant. I was allowed to come here, but that's only by the grace of luck.
Mm-hmm.
In a different situation, in another stroke, what could have happened to me was I could have had to come here undocumented, or I would have had to come here seeking asylum, depending on what happened in the country that I was living in at the time when I was young. There was actually political unrest at the time. It wasn't a very long political unrest, but the point was that it could have become something very terrible, and we would have been approaching this from a very different situation. But anyway,
I'm the child of first generation. I'm a first generation American citizen. My parents immigrated here.
You are born here.
In the 60s. I'm Cuban, so my parents were a beneficiary to a degree of my mother, at least, was a Cuban refugee.
Mm-hmm.
She came here vis-a-vis plane. She almost came through the Pedro Pan or the Peter Pan flights, but she was too scared to do that.
Mm-hmm.
My father immigrated here in the 50s, totally legally, but we are a nation of immigrants. I can count on two hands how many people I know who are from different countries and who have come to America to learn.
Especially being in a place like Miami, everyone is, everyone in America is an immigrant, basically, except for the Native Americans. But especially living in Miami, everyone around you is someone who's come from somewhere else. And it is by grace of luck that place that they're coming from is more acceptable for this current government or all of our government versus others, and it's such an arbitrary thing, and it affects us. So we went to the protest, the rally, and we showed our support, and that's what we did today, and got soaking wet in the rain. Talking about sheets and sheets of rain, like torrential downpour. But it was, I'm not going to say it was a good time, because it wasn't a good time. It's not a good time, but it was, it felt meaningful to be there to support those kids. That really upsets me.
That felt important.
Yeah.
And it was, there was like 6 counter protesters or so who were just camped out in the front of the facility, and they did not have an easy time there. But mostly everyone was very civil.
Yeah.
Very polite. Other than, the somber and sort of bitter attitude of having to defend human rights in the 21st century.
On this level, yeah.
But, hey, 2 more years.
No, man. Let's not get into this. This is a lot.
Sorry. We didn't want to go this dark today.
Woo!
We wanted to keep it.
We are going dark.
No, but that's way different dark. Because that's dark. This is different dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zena, we're gonna get to the point now.
We wanted to focus on that.
I've tweeted out the links. So currently we're at 0 viewers.
Woo!
So we're tearing it up.
Nobody
There's a chat if anybody wants to check it out. But it's right. This is gonna live as a YouTube video forever.
Of course.
And excite everyone's souls.
Mm-hmm.
Like hardcore. I'm gonna put on the Hereditary trailer. Because today we're going to talk about Hereditary. We saw this film.
Are we only talking about Hereditary? Are we talking about anything else?
It's your call. You're the boss.
What did we see? Incredibles 2.
We have seen Incredibles 2,
Hereditary.
Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and Hereditary.
Well, wasn't there another one? Ocean's 8.
We also saw Ocean's 8 and haven't.
But let's talk about Hereditary, because I think
we should talk about. I think just stick to the good Hereditary today.
Yeah, man, it was so good. Okay. Yeah. For the trailer.
Trailer. Oh no. Not...
Technical difficulties.
No. Technical. Oh no! Infinity is going on. We're gonna die.
Is it still recording?
We're going into forever. Yeah, it's still recording.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, everyone's like tripping balls right now.
Woo!
Oh man, the acid on this computer just kicked.
We should never
there we
have
go.
given it acid.
Boom.
All right, do it.
I gotta press it in this one.
You gotta press the play.
Oh, kidding.
Come on, Peter. This is soon.
This is excellent use of different parts of the movie
to see so many strange
to give
new
you a
faces here
feel,
today.
but
I know
not
my
give
mom
too
would
much
be very
away.
touched.
Yes, suffice to
Probably
say
a
this
little
trailer
suspicious.
is very misleading.
My mother was
But
a
it's
very
also extremely
secretive
accurate.
and private woman.
At the same time.
It's a pretty brilliantly cut trailer.
It's Grandma. You know you were her favorite, right? Even when you were a little baby, she wouldn't let me feed you because she needed to feed you. She was a very difficult woman, which maybe explains me. I recognize you from your mother. What? Sometimes I swear I can feel her in the room. She isn't born. She had private rituals, private friends. Who's gonna take care of me? You don't think I'm gonna take care of you? But when you die. She wasn't altogether there. At the end.
I don't like this. Dad, I don't like this.
What's happening, Peter? Raise your voice. I am your mother. Mom, what's happening?
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
Whoa.
Boom.
Coming soon, and it came, and guess what? We really, really dug it.
Yes, we did. Let's do a quick little
Spoiler-free section?
No, let's just do a quick little information about the movie. Super quick. So this is the writing and directing feature-length film debut for Ari Aster. So you're gonna know him. I think maybe you're gonna know him now. Hopefully, he'll get some more work. I know.
He's definitely gonna get more work after that
movie. The guys
movie.
from The Witch, have they really been doing a lot of stuff since?
I'm not sure what. I'm not sure it's Robert Eggers or Roger Eggers. But he won Best Director at Cannes Film Festival. I'm pretty sure whatever he's working on now is whatever the hell he wants to work on right now.
So Ari Aster, this is his writing director debut, and this is another release by this little company, A24. Little company, haha. A24 is killing the game recently. Like in the last few years,
they put out Tusk, which we loved.
Well, Tusk, yeah, but they have been the ones behind Ex Machina, Moonlight, which we know won the Oscar correctly for Best Picture and Best Director. The Witch, another controversial horror movie, and I'm saying controversial because this movie is a controversial horror movie, and
which we reviewed on our episode Bewitched. If you check out our podcast history on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, you can check out our review.
They also did It Comes at Night. Basically, they're killing the game. Lady Bird is another one. The Disaster Artist. They are basically the big budget indie producers in Hollywood right now. They are putting out all the hits, putting out all the stops, and they're
basically the place to go if you have a weird, quirky, not quite mainstream movie that you don't want. Like, basically, A24 is really good at preserving the magic in their film.
Yes.
Like, you never see an A24 trailer that gives away the best parts of the movie or gives away the story. That is something they're really, really ahead of the game in. is knowing how to, especially with this trailer for Hereditary, where they market the movie in a way that it makes you sort of think you're going to sit through a different movie, but the movie that it delivers is still amazing. I agree, Xena. I agree.
Xena,
it's an amazing
quiet.
movie, Xena. It's an amazing movie. The dogs obviously are not used to the YouTube live streaming yet.
They bark through our
They
other
really
podcasts.
want a lot of commercials is what they're doing.
Yeah, but we're not doing
I
this.
believe you should tweet us at Vundablog or at Vundacast.
Yeah.
Or visit us, Vundablog.com, our website. We're going to do some convention paneling in July 12th to July 15th at Florida SuperCon in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Come check out. If you're a horror movie fan, you're listening to this. We have a panel Friday the 13th. Vundacast Horror Movie Valhalla.
If you like us at all, if you do, we're going to have 12 panels at this year's SuperCon.
3 a day.
Jam-packed schedule. We're going to have fun. There's going to be fun stuff to talk about and maybe sometimes prizes and just a good time to be had by all.
Prizes, surprises, and Sir Steven of Miami. That's me.
I thought you were about to say Sir Mix-a-Lot. I'm like, shh, don't say that. we can't get Sir Mix-a-Lot.
we cannot lie, but we do have big butts. This is true.
So it's going to be a really good time. And yeah, so let's dive right into
Hereditary.
Blah, blah, blah. Should we do a non-spoiler review and then a spoiler review? Should we try to do that? We always fail so much, but we could try.
No, yeah, we should do a little non-spoiler section. I think that's fair.
Okay.
To people in the universe. So, first things first, we watch movies in Miami, in theaters in Miami, and you know that this is a good horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
In that minutes into the film, the crowd is captivated.
Is silenced.
Silenced.
So you didn't really explain what that meant by we see movies in Miami. Okay, when he means we see movies in Miami, you did half a sentence.
I'm sorry.
When we see movies in Miami, it means
to...
that we have there's a very there's actually like an art and a science to seeing a movie in Miami. You kind of have to pick the best time to go. If you don't want to get bothered by obnoxious people talking, you kind of have to pick the best time, should you see this movie first week of the run? Should you go second week? Should you see it in the morning? Should you see it in the evening? And I mean, none of that is 100% guaranteed, but for the most part, it kind of works out for us. Mm-hmm. If we choose to see movies at a specific time, we can have a better way, or in a specific theater, we have a better way. It's a pain in the ass.
We have a better crowd reaction.
We have a better crowd. It's a pain in the ass. People in Miami can be really fucking obnoxious. But this movie, people really sat through it. And honestly, I was very surprised because it's not an easy sit through for an average audience. It is basically 2 hours of very quiet, slow movie until kind of like the last 30 to 40 minutes at the end where shit just starts hitting the fan. It really kind of basically, for 2/3 of the film, it's a family drama about grief and about loss and about, the dark kind of issues in a family with mental illness. And that's really kind of what it is on the surface. And then, under the surface, and then more under the surface, there's another kind of secondary story that comes out that's pretty damn terrifying and interesting.
And multi-layered.
This whole movie is so many different layers of performance, and I think just a non-spoiler review, Toni Collette's performance. If she doesn't get an Oscar nomination, the world is an unfair, terrible place. She was so good in this movie. She was spectacular. The entire cast was spectacular. Gabriel Byrne, Alex Wolff was...
Well, that was Gabriel Byrne. Okay.
Yeah.
I spent the whole movie trying to be like, oh my god, what is his name?
You couldn't figure it out.
I couldn't remember his name.
He has gotten older. He has gotten older. Alex Wolff, you will recognize him as the kid who played the lead in Jumanji. He was the little Jewish boy. Was he Jewish in that? He was Jewish. The little Jewish boy who became The Rock In Jumanji, he is playing the son Peter. And then there was a newcomer, and I want to get her name because I think she deserves recognition because she's more than just a creepy kid. And I know she's supposed to play just a creepy kid, but she's more than just a creepy kid.
But no, she had a lot of...
Millie Shapiro, she plays Charlie, the youngest daughter.
And she really manages to capture, like, you know, a very, like, hurt confusion in the character.
I really appreciate... Well, I was very afraid that they were going to sort of use the oddness of her features and the fact that her character is someone with special needs because she was in a special needs class. That's not really a spoiler, like, doesn't really give anything away. It's part of her character. And I was very afraid that they were going to make it exploitative, and I don't think that they did that. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm neurotypical, so I mean, I couldn't tell, but I don't know. I didn't feel like she was ever just this terrifying sort of demon child or, you know, like, or pathetic. She was just a person, and she kind of had her own, and you did feel a lot of sympathy for her character. You know, and I won't go into that in this portion because that would be spoilers.
So who was the actress who played the grandma?
The grandmother
who manages to basically...
She never
gets I don't think she gets a scene with dialogue in the movie.
She's dead. I mean, in the whole movie.
No, I know, but I'm saying I don't think she ever has.
No, they didn't do any flashbacks or anything.
You see her in like so many photos, and she's in like a couple sequences, and you just get this presence from her. And since they spend so many good chunks of the movie,
I don't know,
discussing her, she really sold you as like someone who was powerful.
Well, I think that the power of the writing, the power of the writing was definitely that without ever seeing this woman speak, or seeing her move around because she is dead, and that's given away in the trailer. She is terrifying. Just hearing about her, she is a horrifying, oppressive presence. And I think that really speaks to this kind of they don't have her name here in this cast. That really kind of...
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. That kind of speaks to...
Is she a real ghost?
Shut up. That, well, what is... Yeah, I don't know what their name...
Maybe she's using, like, her, like, young lady picture or something?
No, I don't... Hold on, let me see.
I'm using my picture from when I was...
I don't know. I don't see...
Baywatch and Murder, She Wrote.
No, because they don't even have her name here. They don't even have the name. Weird. Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, you can... They really put... they really use her as this kind of intense, oppressive presence that sort of feeds into the drama of the story with the family and their history with mental illness and their history with some other dark, creepy things
that are good. But the movie's an intense watch.
Yes.
It has moments of gore and stuff that are unsettling, but it's not the type of movie that...
This is one of those horror movies. This is one of those horror movies that it does take... It is not something for everybody. It's very telling that on the Facebook page for the movie, there were 465 5-star reviews and 435 1-star reviews. This is a movie that is going to split an audience. People, I know that some...
Go over a lot of
I know that cinema score, it has like a D for the audience. The audience, there's a lot of the audience that doesn't like it.
Rosemary's Baby, you probably won't appreciate this possibly.
Yeah, I'm just...
To a degree.
The thing is, this movie is okay. This reminded me a lot of that when The Witch came out. The A24, they're doing these horror movies that are not strictly just horror movies. They're not
atypical horror movies.
They may follow kind of with some of their genre. Obviously, their genre.
Getting murdered.
They're not slasher films.
They're not popcorn films.
They're not. They're meant to be movies that explore... You know, the
psychological,
the kind of horror, the kind of
intellectual horror.
It's the horror of human emotion, and I think that you know, if you're someone who appreciates how scary the human mind and human emotion can be. I think this is something that really will do well. Like if you enjoyed the Babadook, the Babadook
yes,
is
that's a super fair parallel.
The Babadook is
spiritually similar to the Babadook.
This is about grief. This is about tragedy. This is about loss. This is about how grief is in itself a monster that can destroy you. It is about how mental illness is in itself can be a monster that can destroy you. You know, people don't realize if they've never lived with mental illness severely or not or whatever, or even just moderately, to like how much it can fuck with you and make you miserable and make you feel like the world around you is a living nightmare. And so I think this movie just did that so well. And it really asked a lot of questions about, like, is that inherited? Is darkness inherited? Trauma, is it inherited? And I know there's a lot of exploration on that, you know, in sociology and in studies of psychology about the idea that trauma is inherited. You know what I mean? Which is why it's important to stop the cycle of trauma, because you can inherit darkness, and it's kind of like this movie definitely explores that. So yes, if you're this movie, I will give this to the people that are still kind of like, who? The movie's slow. It's slow, like meaning that you're gonna think something's gonna happen, it doesn't happen then. You're gonna think something happens, it doesn't happen then. And it just keeps going. The movie is very emotionally intense. It is about character. It is about kind of getting to know these characters. There are some disturbing scenes that come, you know, piecemeal through the film.
This film is quite possibly the most, not just like it's kind of different type of horror than I've ever experienced in a movie theater before.
Yes.
Because there was just like large chunks of the movie where I just felt so like just uncomfortable in my chair.
Yes.
You know?
I felt uncomfortable.
And we can get a little more deeply through that in spoilers.
Totally.
Coming up. But we highly recommend that
you go see Hereditary.
Give this movie a shot and figure out whether you're the type of person that's gonna boo this and think you're a dummy. And I'll think you're a dummy. Or you love it. And guess what? I think
and here's the thing. I understand that this is not a cup of tea for everybody. I can get it. But I really feel like you should go into this with an open mind, knowing that you're not just going to get a straight horror movie. And I think that you should go in with as little knowledge of the film as possible. Like, the trailer is enough. That's all you need. Don't spoil yourself. Go in and watch it. Go in and experience it. Even if you're not scared of it, I think you might get something else from it. That, you know, just even if you just get how kind of like the tragedy of it, or, you know what I mean? That like, then that's a success. Anyway, I think we should move to spoilers.
Word. And our tradition on the Vundacast, when we go to spoilers, is we sing a little song about spoilers.
Oh, snap.
Spoilers. These are the spoilers.
Spoilers! What the fuck?
Spoilers.
Damn you, sir, with your fucking your
spoilers. The biggest pop-out scares in this movie happen off this sound. It's crazy. Let's
give away, for people who want to be spoiled, for people who have seen it and whatever.
If you're in this part of the podcast video,
podcast,
then you are about to get spoiled right now.
You've
seen this movie. You've experienced it, and guess what? You probably fucking enjoyed it, because if not, why would you spend more time listening to people talk about it?
Let's fucking talk about this.
The movie.
I feel bad because I slightly was spoiled. I allowed someone to spoil me. Okay? And it sucks. I allowed someone to spoil me. However, let's ask Steven, who walked in unspoiled, right? You were not spoiled.
Nope.
Did you see the ending coming?
The ending in what sense? The payment?
Yeah. Did you see all that coming?
When the movie opened on a shot of the boy. Okay. And now I'm blanking on his name, even though I remember. Peter. Okay. When it opened on a shot of him, I immediately was like, this is very strange that they're opening on this character when they sold it as a movie
about the other girl,
about the little girl.
Yeah.
So that immediately, as a horror fan, as someone who's watching the storytelling, that sort of tipped me off that they were going to go left.
And I won't look.
When they, when I started to get a feel that they might go in that direction,
the demonic direction,
in that sort of direction, in a Rosemary Baby-esque direction, was when at the funeral you saw that creepy old punk-looking guy who looks like some sort of German punk or something.
And I think
that creepy guy immediately said to you, like, oh, there's going to be some Satanists and shit.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I think even if I hadn't spoiled myself, I would have known, because I watched so many movies like this. And here's the thing, I don't think this movie was meant to be like, you never see this twist coming, like you know, it wasn't meant to totally just be like,
it's not trying to pull the rug out from under you.
I mean,
it's not trying to do the hot tension thing, am I saying that right?
Hot tension,
hot tension where it's like, oh, everything
the
you
woman
saw
is the killer.
Yeah,
exactly. Haha, spoilers for hot tension.
Oh no, I spoiled hot tension.
Oh shit.
Oh no, sacre bleu.
Haha, titty croissant.
I will remember this Steven of the Vundacast.
Hot tension, the killer is the girl. She has a
hey, what the fuck?
What the fuck? They know they're on the spoiler section. I can spoil whatever.
She gets a blowjob from
Darth Vader is Luke's father. You know, fucking, he was dead all along. Come on, guys. All right,
Rusty killed Kennedy. Yeah, we all know.
Yeah, but okay. Yeah, I definitely, the way they set it up was totally like creepy people, Satanists. Like, that's kind of like, at this point, we know creepy people, Satanists. And maybe that's what some people didn't like, maybe because they did see it coming and they were like, boo, this is boring in that way, which, you know, whatever. I mean, if that's what you got from the movie and you didn't get that, then I can understand why. But for me, it just, what was really tragic about it, and I love the way that the movie, it's just fun. It's just fun when a movie has all the pieces in place.
We just walk them through
the plot
real quick.
Okay, fine, because we're in the spoiler section.
We're in the spoiler section. This is a YouTube video now.
All right, I'll do it.
I think it's fair to give YouTube people a little quick, brief synopsis.
Quick. I'm trying to be quick.
Okay. The movie opens with...
Oh my god, that's not quick.
That's quick. It's part of
Once upon a time.
Part of the story.
Once upon a time. Okay, no.
So we learned that Toni Collette.
Shush. Yeah, shush. She's so bad at this. I'm better at this than you. I'm sorry. Toni Collette's character's name is Annie.
She's so humble at this, I think.
I am. I tell you. Toni Collette's character's name is Annie. Her mother has died at the beginning of the film. She is an artist. She makes tiny little doll replicas of her life to kind of work through all of her issues. So you get a lot of creepy doll like imagery in the whole film. Her husband's name is Steve. They have 2 children, Peter and Charlie. Peter is a typical teenage boy who likes to smoke pot and wants to kiss up on girls. And Charlie is a quiet girl who likes to sleep in a treehouse and is a little, you know, strange.
She has like a mild facial deformity.
But she's very sweet, and she's just very kind of shy and you know, just sort of like into her own thing. She's a little creepy because she likes to make weird dolls, but she's an artist like her mother. So like, it's creepy, but at the same time, if her mother is creepy, then she's creepy, you know, kind of that thing. Anyway, so Annie's mother dies. And this kind of, you know, they all have to live in her house. They're sort of dealing with the fallout.
You see how they react to their grandmother's death. And then one day at school.
It's like a study in grief. So you kind of see the mother dealing with it. You see everybody dealing with it. Then what happens is...
One day in school, Charlie's hanging out in class. A bird hits the window while she's in class at a... strange moment that you saw in the trailer.
Yeah.
Then Charlie goes off and she decides to decapitate that bird to make it into a doll, sort of like her mom does. And then, you know, you kind of see basically Toni Collette is trying to she wants her kids to be well adjusted.
She wants her kids to be normal, unlike her and the rest of her family. You find out in the course of the film that her whole family history is one of tragedy. Like her mother,
suicide, mental illness.
yeah, her brother, her father died from starving to death from psychotic depression. Her brother died,
Self-immolation.
hanged himself.
Oh, no.
He hanged himself. Did he burn himself? No, he
No,
hanged
I think
himself.
the dad.
The dad starved himself to death.
He didn't burn himself?
No, he starved himself to death.
Nobody goddamn burned themselves.
Nobody burned themselves.
All right, I'm wrong.
Yes, you are. Wow. See, this is why I'm better at this than you. Anyway, so we find out that her brother killed himself because he said, and I quote, "My mother was trying to put people in me," which isn't ominous at all, is it, folks, when you hear that noise? But basically, her whole goal in this movie is to try to give her children a better life, to have them escape this sort of cloud. But it just seems, unfortunately, impossible. And it all comes to a head in the film when her son, Peter, wants to go to a party. And he's trying to get there as sneakily as possible without telling his mom it's just going to be a bunch of kids doing drugs and smoking pot.
And this is the most amazing part about the movie, is that the movie continues to like walk into horror film tropes.
Yes, definitely
right?
A lot of tropes.
Teenage boys who want to smoke pot and hook up with girls, and they're doing whatever they can to sneak out of the house and lie to their parents to go do it. But oh, they brought their kid sister. What trouble will ensue at the party? And then the trouble that ensues at the party is a normal human bit of horror where the kid accidentally eats peanuts.
Okay.
I feel like I'm spoiling.
I know, but you're like,
why are you so annoyed by me?
I'm not being annoyed. I'm listening to you. What the fuck?
You said like I suck at this like 4 times.
Because you're like telling it out of order and you're inserting.
No, I'm not.
I can't even get through a summary of the film.
I'm going in order. I'm just trying to put detail in there.
But why?
Because I want to have detail in my review.
Okay.
So that when we allude to things, it makes sense in context. But continue.
Okay. No, yeah. So as he said, he takes his sister to the party, and then human horror ensues. The sister is allergic to nuts. She eats a piece of chocolate cake with peanuts in it. She has an allergic reaction. Her brother has to take her to the hospital. As she leans her head out the window trying to get air, she is decapitated. So we have this really tragic, terrible moment. And let's talk about this tragic moment. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, it's really the most unsettling and like horrifying part of the movie.
It's so abrupt.
Where, it just happens and then the camera just sort of lingers.
They do this
on the reaction.
Yes, they do this brilliant thing that I don't think I've seen a movie do, or at least like
not this
not
type
in
of movie.
recent, not this type of movie in recent history, where they just focus on Peter's reaction. Peter is so traumatized he can't even look in the back seat to see his sister's headless body that is still in the car. The head is outside. And he drives home knowing that there's nothing he can do. And he's so just fucking shocked. He drives home. He crawls into bed. And he just lays there until his mother discovers her daughter's headless body.
You just hear
her freaking out.
What the warning, how it turned into
I really think,
her sorrow.
I really think that like this movie plays so much with the concept of just the natural horror of human existence. Like, what a terrible thing to have to happen to somebody. Like, that part is honestly, aside from the rest of the nutty shit with the demon worship and Satan, is honestly one of the scariest parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's so unsettling, because you don't know what's going to happen. Because another horror movie would have had the little girl like looking at him in the window or like something, or like slow motion or something, or
and then or like have like, like the whisper of like a ghost behind him after like to haunt him or something.
Or he would have seen something in the road like a demon or something.
The only unsettling part afterwards is they cut to the post that her head smacked into in the morning.
Yes.
And there's this sort of like like this tapestry weave symbol.
There's a symbol
that,
that
like layered throughout the movie.
It's scattered throughout the movie, and you find out at the end that it is the symbol for the demon Payman. And we'll get into Payman a little bit as we move on. So the mother is now, the mother, what's interesting is Toni Collette's character, Annie, barely mourned her mother. In fact, she talked about how, like, she wasn't close to her, and she kind of almost seemed relieved that she was dead. Like, she felt like she was escaping, like a burden was lifted from her. But then the death of her daughter just destroys her completely. She begs for death. It's really horrifying, and it's a credit to the power of Toni Collette's performance. She's
so good.
Yeah.
Like, she
Jesus.
makes you feel
every ounce of that pain.
So bad. And it's amazing how the movie, since the trailers kind of set up Charlie as who you think the
bad guy,
the villain would be, that once she dies and we realize that she's just a victim in all this horror
of circumstance,
you immediately feel so much.
Xena, thank you, Xena.
Okay, Xena, go outside. I'm going around. Don't bark at the moon. Bark at crazy things.
Okay.
Podcast interruptus dogus.
We can do live podcasts. We got to do these somewhere else, man.
Yeah, we need live dogcasts.
Anyway, so yeah, you really then you kind of see more of the family just unraveling, because obviously you have Peter on one side, who knows he personally feels he fucking killed his sister. And, I mean, unfortunately, he feels the responsibility of it. He took her he didn't tell his mom there were going to be drugs at the party because he was too worried about getting in trouble. So he didn't fucking tell her. So he didn't, and then he brushed his sister off. She didn't want to be alone. And then she was alone. And then it's like this horrible, inevitable thing. And then, of course, again, there is, the point also being that why did she force her to go to the party? Because Charlie didn't want to go to the party. So there's a lot of guilt to go around between these two characters.
And all throughout the film, they're laying all these little seeds at something larger going on in the background. We learn that, their grandmother's grave, her body was
disturbed, desecrated. And these are snippets that come in, and it's such a human thing, the way that they unravel them, because the grave is desecrated earlier on in the film, and the husband, Steve, gets a phone call about it, but he doesn't tell Annie, the mother, because he doesn't want to disturb her. He doesn't want to tell her that her mom's grave was desecrated.
And Annie starts sneaking off, and she goes after her mother dies, and then after her daughter dies,
to grief counseling. But she can't. But unlike her mother, that she can talk about her death, she can't even talk about her daughter's death. She's so distraught until she runs into a woman named Joan, who says, "Oh, I saw you at the grief counseling, and I just want to talk to you." Obviously, we're getting into this. See, that's the thing. What I love about this movie is that they totally play with all those horror tropes. The mysterious stranger that's so helpful. Later on there's a seance, the kind of all that kind of stuff, my mother had a very secretive past, and she had all these new people that I've never seen before coming to her funeral, all these little snippets that you kind of start seeing. And then even there's spirit, at the beginning there's books on spiritualism, and it just all goes to this this kind of ahead, where basically Joan, the friend, this friend who comes in to help Annie deal with her daughter's death, she gives her the way to talk to her daughter through seance.
She basically gives her a bunch of magic stuff to do.
Yeah.
To perform a seance, and
she's just go ahead and say these magic words and
ritual.
Put a glass.
So unsettling.
Yeah.
Don't give away all the mystery.
No,
but it's
just really unsettling. We're all spoiling everything.
I know. But
so I guess
I want to preserve the mystery now.
You're stupid. So basically, all this kind of stuff happens, and then at the end, you learn this terrible truth about this family. That you learn all the details, all the snippets, all the puzzles come together. That Annie's mother was a demon worshiper. Holy shit. And her life's goal has been to get the demon Payman, who is the 8th king of hell, right? In the 8th circle or whatever. The king of hell.
Ocho!
Her goal has...
Check him out.
He's so badass.
He's right next to the fiery parts of hell.
Woo! So her goal has been to get this demon on Earth so she can reap the benefits of his...
He's supposed to give her a lot of gold and rewards.
Yeah, his omniscience, I guess. But here's what's really terrifying is that... Oh, that was Xena hitting the microphone, sorry.
Xena's ready to tug.
So the horror is that Annie had her eldest son. She never allowed her mother near her eldest son. And it's revealed in the film that she didn't even want to have the eldest son. Like, there was basically something in her whole life that was telling her not to have children. And she tried to miscarry him, but unfortunately he was born. But she kept him away from the mother. Then when her second child was born, out of guilt, she allowed Charlie, her daughter, to be around her grandmother. And what her her mother, and what Charlie's grandmother and Annie's mother did was put the demon Payman inside of this child. And then played the waiting fucking game until they got Charlie, until Charlie died. And then
they would move it.
Then they would move the demon Payman from inside of Charlie into Peter. Because Payman requires a male host. And of course, you get that kind of layer of misogyny. This idea that, like, as a girl, she's wrong. And that the superior child is the male. You know what I mean? Like, you got a whole layering kind of in that. And you really see it. And then everything kind of clicks into place at the end. And suffice to say, the last 20 minutes of this movie are fucking batshit.
Yeah.
And horrifying. So scary. You're just like, I mean, the effectiveness of the fear in this story, there's an unsettling kind of feeling to this movie, but then when it really starts to hit, they don't do any jump scares, like in a sense that they don't do any music coming at you like, bah! Like, they don't do anything like that. All the jump scares come from you. They do this brilliant thing where they focus on scenes longer than normal. So, like, every scene in this story goes on like 10 to 30 seconds longer than it would in another movie. This movie is not cut in a way that's like quick. It's cut in a very languishing, slow way. And yeah, there's lots of monologues. There's lots of silence. There's kind of, and there's... And all the visuals are, like, it almost, at times, it feels like a Wes Anderson movie. Yeah. Sort of, because everything is so controlled and so manicured and so detailed, perfect. Like, you can tell that every single frame of the shot, every piece of the wall, every piece of fabric, it's just every piece of, like, tapestry on the detail bed in this film has all been carefully chosen for a dramatic effect. Yes. Especially the imagery of, like, a weave of tapestry, because there's a few sequences in their hallway in their production home. Design, yeah. And but there's a few scenes of the hallway in their home where they have this tapestry print where everything just feels so weird, claustrophobic. Yeah. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the production design gives you this sense of this home is supposed to be like homey, but it's not. It's wrong. There's always something wrong with everything in this subtle way. And you think, okay, well, it's the grief. I think it's supposed to meant to be to reflect the grief and how grief changes things and makes things wrong and makes things like terrible. And it's just, and I mean, really, once it starts to gut punch you with the scary shit, the way they do it is, like I said, they focus on things a little bit longer than they should. And it is horrifying. Like, there's amazing sequence. Can I finish? There's like this amazing sequence where Peter gets up. He sits up in the bed And at this point in the story, Peter, we know everything. We know that Peter is the vessel in which they're trying to instill a demon, and like they're doing something to Peter. Peter's getting fucked up, basically. We don't know the full, but we know most of it. And Peter gets up, unknowing that earlier his father had been immolated, and in an attempt to try to exorcise the demon from the house. And his mother had been possessed, and they just do this slow pan out shot. And in the fucking corner of the fucking wall, his mother is like crouched like a fucking bat. Oh my God, like that. I screamed and nothing happened. It was just the horror of knowing she was, and you never see her face. You just see the darkness, and it's so I mean, Jesus Christ, it gave me so much shivers. Okay, what were you saying?
I don't know.
You were saying that.
Here's journalist. They found so many ways to weave in like just kind of repeat imagery in the movie where like, you know, she plays with, or not she's playing, she's using like these little figurines and moving them around, these doll houses that she's building for her art pieces. And then they find a way to bring back that imagery with her body floating around and just churning imagery that you saw in the beginning of the movie that was creepy but was mundane.
Yes.
And then churning it into the full horror version of it. Fully realized that I think was like what made it so artistic. Totally. And then also they layered in all these subtext with like the lessons the kid was being taught in school with like, you know, all these stories about Greek tragedies.
Yeah, they basically explain the movie to you in the beginning but through the lessons that Peter was learning in school, which was the idea about what would be more tragic. This was the thing they were talking about. They were talking about what is more tragic? The idea that people have a choice in their destiny and they choose wrong and then bad things happen to them, or that they have no choice and that they're just
can't stop
floating along into the horrible tragic. And one
of the gods' destinies.
And one of the girls is like, I think it's more tragic if they don't have a choice, because it's like nothing they do matters. And it feels, when you come out of the movie and you start thinking about it again and you think about that lesson, it's like a gut punch, because this movie is a hard watch. It's bleak. There is no happy ending here. There is no, they figured it out. They got out. Like, I would compare it to another kind of slow build horror, which in The Witch. But for me, The Witch kind of had a happy ending for me. I know that sounds really weird, but I feel like, that character was so in such an oppressive society, and she was in such an oppressive situation with her family. Like, obviously, yes, it's terrible that her little brother and sister had to die, and whatever. But it really felt like she was just so trapped by her father and her mother's resentment, that at the end, when like Satan comes and is like, wouldst thou like to live deliciously? And she's like, sure. And she goes and she does this thing. I actually feel like she's free. It feels like a happier ending for me. Maybe that's just from my perspective, but Hereditary, there is no fucking happy ending. It is just fucking bleak. I mean, this family is destroyed. They're all dead. Mm-hmm. Even Peter, because Peter's soul, it presumably is expelled from his body, and payment is placed inside of him. Yeah, expelled, because she says, I expel you, Peter. She's literally telling him, I expel you, like I expel your soul out of this fucking vessel to make room for payment. Like there's a moment where you find out everything. You find out everything is linked. So very Rosemary's Baby-esque. You find out that like Joan knew Anne's mother, and everyone around her that's been like pushing her is basically a Satan worshiper, and they're all just watching from afar, waiting for this moment to happen. Who knows how long they've been waiting. I mean, oh my God, it's just so fucking... And then to know that her mother did this to her family, and then the context of what happens to her brother and her father is even more terrifying, because you realize that her brother was right. her brother, she was trying to put people inside of him, and he figured it out before she could and killed himself before she could finish her work. And so there's just this terrible and I mean, if you want to look at it just on the supernatural, it's terrifying. But if you want to look at it from the perspective of the non-supernatural, it's also horrifying and sad, because it's basically like mental illness destroyed this family. And they all had mental breakdowns, and terrible things happened, and just they couldn't escape it. And then a terrible tragedy that happened to her daughter. And I think that there's just so much tragedy all around in the film, because Charlie, you feel like she's going to be the scapegoat and she's going to be creepy. And even though she had this demon inside of her, Charlie, I believe herself, was a little girl. And I think
a piece of her was, yeah.
A piece of her was a little girl, you know?
Yeah.
I actually think that the thing that they use really well is that little creepy, that click.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those moments happen when she's dissociating and Payman is inside of her. Is taken over. Like, because she only tends to click when she's making art, creepy, unsettling art where she pieces together bits of things that you wouldn't make dolls out of and makes them dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she draws unsettling photos.
Yeah, and they do this cool thing where basically all of her art, everything that she draws in her style, and after she's gone, like her ghost draws it, is like very like everyone's sort of like disproportionate and like grotesque in a way, all of her caricatures of
abstract
things. And people look at it and like disregard it as
just children's drawings,
as like children's drawings. But later, once you realize that Payman is a part of her, it becomes more, you know.
Like, the reason why my philosophy that she actually was in there, because there's this really terrifying sequence where, I mean, and maybe this could go either way, but there's this really terrifying sequence when they do the seance. So Anne does the seance with her son and her husband, and they go along with it because they know she's in so much grief. They're just like, whatever, let's just do this. Maybe it'll make her feel better. And then there's this really terrifying moment where she starts, on her daughter's voice, starts screaming, "Mommy, mommy, what's going on? Mommy, mommy." And it just gets louder and louder and more terrifying. And in that moment, I'm kind of like, is it that Charlie is trapped and she doesn't know what's going on? Or is that Payman taunting them? Like, you can't, you don't know which one it is. But it could be that Charlie's, so like, part of her was Charlie, and she's trapped with this demon. Like, how terrifying. And then, I mean, I don't know. It really unsettled me. I don't know how people don't find this movie scary. Like, I had trouble sleeping for 2 days.
I think part of the reason it's unsettling too is that most movies have like a clean 3-act structure. And like, you kind of know, like, oh, by the time we get to the big party at the end or whatever the hell's going on in this movie, we know the movie's going to be over.
Yep.
And this movie, you didn't know when the big, turn twist was going to happen.
Didn't.
When you thought the movie was about to end, it just kept on going for another hour. Like, 1 hour into the movie, it felt like you sat through an hour and a half of movie. It was like an amazing magic trick.
It was, and I know for some people that would be insufferable, but for me, it was fascinating because
it was a part of grief.
Yeah, it was playing on that idea of grief and how you want the pain. They tell you time heals, but time takes time. Things are slow, and so especially like when her mother dies, it's like she kind of feels it, but it's different. But when her daughter dies, you really start to feel that terrible passage of time. Every day is another day. She just feels broken inside, and like, when is it going to get better? Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, it's just such a terrible thing.
The thing that I think is most heartbreaking to me is that you see, like, very sparingly moments where Annie is like nice and sweet to her kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's so overcome with grief over them that to see her like not even have moments where she's like, really enjoying it.
She's one of those mothers who shows her love through worry and like overwrougtness. Yeah. And then when they die and when they're in trouble, she really starts to fucking fall apart because she wants to protect them so badly. And it's so sad to see how she just keeps failing. And what's interesting is I think they play a little bit with, is it inevitable or is it their choice? Because she chooses to hold that seance. She could have said no. She could have gone, fuck that.
I know.
And that would, so it's like, did she play into that inevitable terror, or was it something that she couldn't hide from all along? Would they have just found another way? Maybe they wouldn't have. Maybe she fucking did it. And again, the choices that she made. She made Charlie go to the party. She, made them live in this. She made them live in this house after her mother died.
The other thing too is she had, she's the victim of her own mother.
Yes.
And she had night terrors she couldn't control. She did things that
were out of her control,
totally beyond her control throughout.
And
life.
It's such a brilliant thing because it really shows you how well this movie plays, because every one of her choices, I think, almost you can interpret as, is she either protecting them or is she harming them? There's a powerful moment where she talks about why her and Peter have an estranged, kind of a tense relationship at the moment, because when they were a little bit younger, she was sleepwalking and she woke up to all three of her children. I mean, her children and her covered in turpentine, and she had a lit match in her hand. And she was ready to self-immolate. And it's kind of was that a demon trying to destroy them all? Or was that her trying to save them from this horror that she knew her mother was going to exact on them? The fact that she didn't want Peter so badly to the point where she tried to miscarry him. You know what I mean? It just seems it's so sad. It's so fucking tragic because it's holy shit, dude, everything in your life.
And everyone feels so human, especially the dad, Steve, who we don't learn a great deal about,
but you don't need to.
You can understand, especially through Gabriel Byrne's great performance, just how
tired he is,
how hard all this has been on him, and how he thought that he's been keeping this family together. And no matter what he does, everything is
and it's also because I love the way that they portray their characters. You can see that he puts up with a lot from her because he kind of knows her. He knows that maybe this is how she takes things sometimes. He puts up with a lot, even before Charlie dies. The whole thing with the mother, he puts up with a lot from her. I would say that he knows his wife and he understands his wife. So he knows she's an artist and he knows that she's dealing with this kind of stuff. And he's very supportive of that. And it takes him so long to start to kind of that horrible realization that he thinks, well, my wife is going insane. My wife has lost her mind. And you want him to be right. You want him to think she's just lost her mind. But has she? Because then you see the end. And I mean, oh man, I don't want to give away everything. Yeah, we won't give away everything, but the gut punch of the end, the terror of the end. Oh my fuck. That fucking fucked me up so bad. And the ending
is definitely,
my god.
They basically, it's a genius bit of writing because in basically 2 minutes, they explain everything.
Yes.
And it's just beautiful.
They explain everything and they do it in a way that makes sense because the character that they're explaining it to wouldn't know what's going on and would kind of be confused. And I mean, oh my god, they just, I don't know, they just do so much with so little. And everything in the movie, by the way, was practical. The bird? That was a bird in a cannon. Whoa. That wasn't CGI. They fucking were shooting a bird out of a cannon at a window. Everything was practical. They didn't have any.
Awesome.
I don't think I was looking at it. There was no.
The flies are practical too?
CG. Maybe only the flies. The ants? Maybe the ants
The
were
flies,
CG.
I thought were CG.
Maybe the CG insects, yeah, because that would make sense. But you can get insects. I mean, perhaps it's an ASPCA
You can
thing.
get insects.
You can get bugs, but like, yeah, I mean, oh my god, I don't know. I don't think that maybe the insects weren't CG. Maybe they were
Xena
fucking real.
Has defluffed the dragon during this podcast,
Thank you.
and we'll throw it up on her Instagram at Midnight Hounds.
Yes.
And she's signifying that the
She's
podcast
working very
is
hard to be obnoxious to tell us the
coming
podcast is over. Yes.
to a close. You guys are over an hour. I've defluffed this entire.
You guys are the worst. Anyway, so we're wrapping it up. Hereditary scared the shit out of me. I know this is not like I said, this movie's not for everybody, but that ending, that gun punch, the way that they use violence,
And then also
the
just
horror,
the beautiful, not beautiful, but just the thoughtful messaging of like this movie. They're playing the whole movie like these women are special, and then it's like, no, the stupid guy who just wanted to smoke weed and have sex. He's our great hero. He's Satan's hero.
He's Satan's
not
hero.
These powerful women. It's
it's just more like another kind of fucked up perversion. I think it's just more. I just love the way that they turn it on its head. Like they use the genre trope of a creepy child to fuck with you and to think and tell you she's creepy, isn't she? Ho ho ho! But like again, she is not. She is just collateral damage, basically, and Peter is the victim. You know what I mean? And it's such a good. Like I love this movie so much. I think it's one of my favorite, seriously, one of my top favorite horror movies of all time now. If you love Rosemary's Baby, if you love those kinds of strange kind of horror movies, it's got so much of that. Honestly, too, it's funny. It made me laugh. Like the family dynamics were funny.
It has a bunch of little.
It has humor in it. It is very darkly comic, and like I said, Toni Collette deserves an Oscar for her performance.
And even though it's so, the concept on paper is ridiculously fantastical and silly and B-movie as hell. But the presentation feels so real and truthful, and Toni Collette's performance is amazing.
And I mean, is there anything fucking creepier than naked old people in the dark smiling at you?
Nope. Nudists are the scariest shit.
Nothing is fucking creepier than old naked people smiling at you in the dark. If I saw that in my room, I would piss myself in fear. So I think this movie definitely knew.
You wasted time throwing alligators at your parents. You should have just gotten some naked nudists in your
old
mom's
people
house,
smiling in your house,
rubbing their dick on your mom's couch.
Yeah.
That'll make that bitch scream.
Ah!
Oh my god! Bam! How could you?
Dicks everywhere.
Who is this fellow? You want some wine?
I've got a charcuterie plate here. All right, let's.
The Vundacast version of Hereditary is, I think, kind of weird.
All right, okay, so let's wrap it up. I say thumbs up. Who cares? Whatever. Arbitrary rating system.
Paws up.
Dicks up.
Claws up. Yeah. I have been your host, Steven.
And I've been Danielle.
And remember, kids, when you are planning to sacrifice your family members for one of the 8 Hell Lords, you should sacrifice to Vunda Johnson. He's the 7.5 Hell Lord.
7.5. He was late to the party.
You know, he's kind of an assistant to the Hell Lord.
Totally.
But
he's the assistant to the regional Hell Lord.
But Vunda Johnson's coming up in the world.
Totally.
He's a supporter of the podcast. Hail Vunda.
He will make sure that we get over 1,000 views. Hail Vunda.
Hail Vunda. Hail Vunda.